This is Amplify You, the podcast about you discovering your message and broadcasting it to the world. If you're a coach, author, or speaker, you'll want to tune in. If you're looking for the best return on your time investment to get your message out to the world in a bigger way, we're giving you full access and behind the scenes look of how we're running our podcast, how our clients have found success, and what you can do to launch your podcast today. The world needs your message. I'm Michelle Abraham, the host. Join my family as we unleash your unique genius and find the connections you need to launch your adventure today. Join us and let's get amplified. All right. Hey, Amplify You. Michelle Abraham here, your host, and I am bringing you an Ask the Expert interview today with Kelly Falardeau. I am super stoked to bring Kelly to you guys. You guys, this woman is amazing. Let me tell you a little bit about Kelly. But first of all, hey, Kelly, how you doing?
Great. How are you, Michelle?
I am fantastic. Awesome. So Kelly is a burn survivor. You're burned at the age of 2, 75% of her body. So she found a way to success, to go from near death to success. That's incredible, Kelly. So she went from the ugly Scarface girl to the TEDx stage, not only once, but twice in her life, which is amazing. And Kelly has a documentary made about her life story called Still Beautiful. Kelly launched a TV show on Goldcast as well that has almost 10 million views on her show. And she's now a full-time Amazon bestselling author strategist, coaching people to become best-selling authors. So on Christmas Day this year too, Global TV announced that Kelly is one of the most influential, inspiring people of 2020. So welcome, Kelly, and thanks for bringing your amazing talent to us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited and so honored to be able to share with you and your guests. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. Well, I'm just super glad that you're here. So Kelly, you've been through some craziness in your life. So take us back to kind of how your story on this journey to where you are today, being a best-selling author strategist. Tell us a little bit about your journey to get here today.
Yeah, well, when I got burned as a 2-year-old, I didn't know what my life was going to be about. Right? Like I just thought that, I was going to be the ugly girl forever. I mean, I walked past my teacher's desk in grade 5 and I saw a picture someone had drawn of me, and it was a circle with scribbles all over it and it said Scarface. And so I knew they were talking about me because there was no other Scarface girl in the room. Mm-hmm. And so all my life it was, struggled with my burns and confidence and my abilities. And it was like, what am I going to do with my life? Right? Like I thought I'd never ever get married or have kids or have a good life, but I did get married. I did have kids. And then 11 years ago, I decided, you know what, I'm going to take my life to a whole different level. And that's when I met Charmaine Hammond, who said, Kel, you need to sell that business you have and become a speaker. And I like, what? I don't know how to be a speaker. And she's like, no, you need to be a speaker because people will be so inspired by your story. And I didn't understand it because at that point in my life, I was in a toxic marriage. We were almost bankrupt. I, hated my job. I hated my business. I just hated everything about my life except for my kids. And so I just didn't see myself as being an inspirational person. So, yeah. Anyways, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so how did you get that inspiration? Like when you're feeling like it's hard to pull that inspiration out when you're not feeling it, right? So what did you do to kind of like cultivate that inspiration and actually get on TEDx stages is a lot of work. So that must have been quite the journey for you.
It is. Yeah, exactly. And what was interesting is I did end up selling the business. I ended up ending my marriage and I became a speaker, wrote a book, got onto my second book, and I got mentors involved to help me to get to that place. Because when I would get up on stage, I was so excited. I just couldn't wait to do it again. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh my God, what is this feeling that I have? Because I had never had that feeling before. I hated going to work. And my boss gave me an ultimatum. And she said to me, Kel, are you going to be excited to come to work on Monday or relieved if you don't have to? And I was like, oh, and that hit me right to my core, right in my chest, because I knew I wanted to be a speaker full time, but I had just left my marriage 4 months earlier. And I was living in my aunt and uncle's basement in a bedroom at 44 years old. I'm thinking, I shouldn't be there. I should be, way better than where I am. But that that question that she asked me made me think of something, and it made me realize that the only person who can change my life is me. I'm the one who has to take action. And if that was inspiring me that much to be a speaker, it was like, how can I do more of that? And so that was really important to me. It's just, so I just got other mentors and speaking coaches involved to help me to take it to that whole new level. And it was just amazing that I did that, because now, like you said, you know, I've got all these incredible credentials, and it's all because I took that forward.
Wow, that's incredible. So so we believe like everyone's got a message to share with this world. And I'm sure you coach your authors on this as well, that they have a message that's worthy of being out there in this world. What's the message that you lead with when you're out there speaking and doing your TED Talks and writing your books, Kelly?
Well, one of my biggest messages is that you're more than enough. You know, I get a lot of people coming to me that want to write a book, and they say, well, who am I to write that book? Or who am I to do that podcast? Or who am I to be that speaker? And I always say to them, because you lived through it. Right? You lived through your journey. So you are the person to tell that story, right? And you never know when you're going to help somebody. And that is the most beautiful thing about what I love, what I do, is this brings me to a story about Maria. And when COVID hit, like I was a keynote speaker, and then I lost all my speaking gigs. And I said, okay, what's next? And I laid on the couch for a week. I did, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then I put on a course to teach people how to write books. And I said, pay me what you can. I don't care what you pay me, whether it's $20 or $100 or $200, it doesn't matter. Just pay me what you can. And we'll put on this one-day course. So I did. And of course, we had to make it virtual. So Maria takes my course. And so she tells me later, she said, you know what, Cal, I really want to thank you for making it virtual. She says, I was going through cancer, and I was going through my chemo at the time of your course. And if you would have done it as a live course, I wouldn't have been able to participate. And she said, now I know how to write a book. She says, I can't do house cleaning anymore. So now I get to be an author. And her book became a best-selling book. And now she's on her way to writing 10 romance novels, all because of what I taught her. And so she thanks me all the time, because she says, I owe you my life.
Wow.
Because if I wouldn't have been able to take your course while I was going through chemo, I wouldn't be a best-selling author.
Wow, that's so incredible. I love that. Now, it takes some courage to go from like, you know, like you said, you were kind of like not feeling the inspiration or not feeling so inspirational, then to go on and be an inspirational speaker. For people that are at home, maybe listening to this right now, where they know they have this message inside them, they know it needs to get out, but they just don't feel, like you said, that anyone's going to listen, or like we see a couple of fears come up when people are launching podcasts or a big platform like a book. What are some things that you did to kind of get yourself into that inspirational mindset from the not feeling so inspirational?
Well, you know, one of the things that I do is, and this is something I teach in my classes, is who is it that you want to help? Like, for example, one time I had to do a speech to a conference full of burn survivors. There was 200 burn survivors, and they're my people, right? And so they're expecting me to say something that's just going to change their life forever, right? So I felt tremendous pressure. And so what I did is I imagined another burn survivor sitting in front of me. And I said to myself, what are 10 things I'd want to tell that burn survivor? Right? What are those 10 things I'd want to tell them? And that's where I say about anybody that wants to write a podcast or do a podcast or write a book or be a speaker is, what are 10 things you'd want to tell that person? And those become your talking points, right? Or those become your writing points. Those become your chapters. Those become whatever it is. But you really have to imagine, who is that person you want to help? And the reason I say that is because I also speak to a lot of teenagers. So schools and colleges hire me, and then there's women groups that hire me to speak. So when I'm speaking to teenagers, of course, I'm doing a whole different message to the teenage group than I am to women entrepreneurs. Right. So that's why it's so important to know who your audience is and who you want to help. It's just like on a podcast, you wouldn't want to have, you know, a teenager on your, you know, entrepreneur show. It just wouldn't make sense, right? So you want to make sure that you're speaking to your avatar.
Yeah, I love what you say that. They say that because, you know, some of the most successful shows that we've worked with, that we've really seen that they really speak to that one person who was potentially them a few years ago, or where they were when they started their journey. And that resonates so much better with their listeners than this overall, like, hey, everyone, hey, guys, or trying to like appeal your story to everybody. We're focusing in on that person when you're actually speaking. And just the way you say it, I think too, comes across so much more powerful in their ears than just a general message, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that, Kelly. So now I would love to hear from you as the best-selling author strategist. What are some things that, you know, what becoming a best-selling author seems to be something on a lot of people's lists. Same with podcasting. So what would you say are some of the most beneficial things or reasons why some of our podcasters now should maybe think about starting a book as well?
Well, one of the biggest reasons I said is the credibility. So when you become a best-selling author, you just jump from here to here as far as credibility goes. And the way you want to look at this is if somebody has to choose between your podcast or someone else's podcast, or having you as a guest on their show, if you're a best-selling author, they're going to pick you versus someone who isn't. And so it's really a big, big credibility piece. And I know some people will say, oh, Amazon bestselling author, it's just so easy to get. And it is, if you follow the right strategies. And I know some people who have not made the list and they're selling lots of books. So, so to me, it's all about, there's that whole group of people that don't know what it's like to become a best-selling author. And so it's still just as important as ever.
Yeah, I think you made a really good point just there. And I want to just reiterate that for our audience, because we're in this space and we're around a lot of best-selling authors, we're around a lot of podcasters, we're around people that do what we do too. We kind of think the whole world is like that, right? And I think sometimes we forget that, like, to like my parents or to like, you know, my friends or my mom friends or whatever, being a best-selling author is like, wow, like crazy, or being a podcaster is like, you know, huge, like, you know, thing where, because we see it so much, or because we're around so many people. I mean, let's look at my bookshelf. Most of the books on the shelf are clients of mine or friends of mine or my own books. So it's super funny now. Like, that's my reality and your reality and our listeners' reality. But what we need to remember, that's not everybody's reality out there. I think that's
exactly.
Get caught up in this world where we think everyone else is also in this world. But being a best-selling author seems very unachievable for the majority of the world out there.
Well, yeah. And because a lot of people think that to be a best-selling author, you have to sell like 10,000 books and then you'll make the list. And that's not true at all. You just need to get into the top 100 of your category on Amazon. And that's what I specialize in. That's my secret sauce, is I know how to find the categories, I know how to research them, and I know how to pick the right ones for you and your book. And a lot of times what happens with my clients is, because of my strategies and my algorithm, I'm able to help people get the bestseller list before we even do the launch.
Nice.
And so people are like, oh, how do you do that? Right?
How did you learn how to do that? That's what I'm curious about.
Well, and it's funny because there were just certain things that I tried and they worked. And I was like, oh, okay, it works. So, and then I tried again and it worked again.
So funny. I mean, I think we could have this conversation, like, should you have a podcast? Should you have a book? You know, it's just funny, as you were talking about the best-selling list. I mean, there's the the iTunes, like, top podcast list. And we have this algorithm thing that we help people get up there too, really high. And it's quite funny because, you know, we can have this conversation. Which one do you do? Do you do the book? Do you do the podcast? I think, you know, I know what I'm going to think, but what do you think, Kelly?
I think you do both.
Yeah, I think you do.
I do. I think you do hand in hand. And, you know, here's the beautiful thing about being a podcaster is you can take your podcast interviews and make books out of them.
Nice.
And that's what I suggest to people. If you've already got 10 or 20 interviews, pick your favorite and take those interviews, get them transcribed, and all of a sudden you've got a book.
Yeah.
And that's actually what I'm doing with one of my clients right now is they did, I think, 15 interviews with people. He had an event and people were speaking on stage. And so he recorded all of them. And then we got them transcribed. And now we're editing that and making that into a book. And so as a podcaster, that's super easy for you because you already got the content.
Totally. I mean, I think the best case situation would be if you know you're going to write a book, to think about that before you actually launch the podcast, because then you can specifically speak in a certain way in your show or interview a certain way or ask certain questions that then goes into the book really nicely. That's like, I think the ideal situation. But if writing the book was a hindsight to your podcast, then I think there's still some good ways that you can do, like you said, pick your best interviews, pick out the pieces from those interviews. Or for those people those podcasters who have like the same, like they ask the same couple of questions to every guest, those work really good into the books too, I think, right?
Absolutely. That's a great way of doing it. In fact, that actually happened to me, where a friend of mine, this is probably 7 or 8 years ago, and she interviewed me for her podcast. And next thing I know, she was launching a book. And my interview was in the book. This is so cool. But, awesome. You know, the biggest reason that people don't start their book is because they don't know if they can develop the content.
Right.
You already have the content.
And at first, people who love or are drawn to podcasting, I think that's so funny because that's exactly me. I think I could speak and do podcast interviews till the cows come home, but to actually sit down and write is like, and that's never going to happen. So I think this is probably the best way for me to get a book out of me would be to speak it. And how well does that translate into like someone reading it?
Well, and you know, and that's exactly how I did my dating book.
Oh, cool.
Because I wanted to see, okay, can I really do this? Because I've heard of people transcribing and then make a book out of it. So what happened is I went on Facebook and I did a video about the 5 different types of men on the dating sites and how to spot them. And so sure enough, I hired somebody on Fiverr, got them to transcribe it. I think it cost me $20. I got somebody else to do me a cover for another $20. And then I just edited the book. And it was excellent. And, you know, and I think the other big thing is a lot of people think they have to do like a big 150-page book.
Right.
I'm really encouraging people, do a little 4x7, right? Like that's what I'm doing with a lot of my clients now, just these little books. And then it's not quite so overwhelming and you can get it done in like a weekend. Yeah,
it just gives you that head start, right? Like it gives, you know, I always say like, you know, when you're going to start a book, it may not be the book, like your legacy book, but it's a book to get you going, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
You the fluff first before you get into the good stuff, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's one reason why a lot of people don't start their books is because they think that their book has to be their memoir.
Right.
And a lot of times they have something really painful in their past that they're too scared to share. So they don't even start at all.
Right. Or it's like years of processing it to get it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Like to me, you got to figure out what is your book going to be about? Like, what do you want your book to do for you? Right. When you know what you want your book to do for you, then you can determine what profit path you want to take. Right. Like I had, when clients come to me and they say, okay, well, I want to write a children's book and I want to write this business book. And I say, okay, well, what do you want to make money with? You know, like, where do you want to go? And well, I want to do coaching and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, well, then let's write your business book first. Get your business book out so that you can start making money. Then we'll do your children's book after, but let's get your business book out there so that you're making money.
And I'm sure once you get people hooked on doing books, they're like repeat customers, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then once they know how to do it, they realize how easy it is. And then they go on and they do it themselves. And I've had that happen to me too. Yeah, I had like one client do 3 books in 4 months.
Wow, that's incredible. So
Yeah.
cool. So Kelly, for our podcasters sitting at home thinking about, oh, we should do a book. Any last bit of advice before we let you go today? This has been super valuable. I think is really helpful for people to think about their podcast in relation to having a book and like, can you do both and should you do both and how you get them together and how for me especially for me as someone who likes to talk instead of write, how this is going to be really helpful to just, get the podcast interviews turned into a book for you.
Well, a lot of it is just getting started.
Mm-hmm.
Like just start writing, just put the pen to paper and figure out what your goals are, what you want your book to do for you, who you want to write it for. And, like I said earlier, being a podcaster, you have the content, which is 90% of the book.
Right. And that's half of everyone else's problem, right? They don't have the content yet.
I know most writers don't have the content. You guys do not have an excuse. You have the content. So make your book so it fits what you're already doing, because that's going to make it 10 times easier. Mm-hmm. Right? So
yeah, love it. Yeah,
exactly.
Such good advice. Yeah, exactly. Such good advice. Thank you so much, Kelly. And Kelly, where can our listeners find out more about you and how to work with you?
Great. Well, I have a free blueprint that they can have as a gift. So it's the 7 steps to publishing your first book. And so you can go to 7stepsauthor.com. And that's where you can either sign up for a discovery call with me, or you can get the blueprint. I'm also doing a live event April 9th to the 11th called the Bestselling Author Mastery Live, where I'm going to teach you to write your book and get it done so you can become a best-selling author. And so people are more than welcome to come and participate in that also. And just go to 7stepsauthor.com because you can sign up for a discovery call and you can get the blueprint. And
perfect.
I would love to work with you guys.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Thank you so much, Kelly. I appreciate you and all the golden nuggets you've given us and the inspiration you've given us to get out there and get our books done. So podcasters, reach out to Kelly and make sure you connect with her. She is an amazing woman. And thanks, Kelly. We'll bring you back again soon. And until next time, let's get our books written, podcasters.
That's right. You're very welcome. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Michelle.
Kelly. Take care.
Great.
Bye.